Hello, animal lovers, and thank you again for joining us on another episode of Furthest from the Wild. I am your host, Alex Deo. Today I have a very special guest. Her name is Erika Fleury, and she is the program director of NAPSA, the North American Primate Sanctuary Alliance. Today we're going to be talking about monkey rodeos and some of the issues that are happening here in the U.S. If you're enjoying the podcast, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification button. We'd love to hear from you. Enjoy. Thank you, Erika, for coming on to the show. I really appreciate it. I know I had contacted you because I had seen that you guys had posted some things on your social media, so that what really interested me, and I figured, you know what, this would be a really good topic to bring on to the podcast. And so I wanted to. I'm glad you got back to me because I think it's an important topic. Now, you are the program director of NAPSA. Tell me a little bit about yourself and how you kind of came about to be the director there.
Sure. Yeah, and thank you for having me, by the way.
Sure.
NAPSA stands for the North American Primate Sanctuary Alliance. And just so people know what NAPSA is, it's a coalition of right now 10 of the leading primate sanctuaries on the continent who care for over 820 rescued primates right now.
Wow.
The number keeps going up, so I always have to think about
Yeah.
it. Yeah. I mean, the growth, the expansion is pretty
Sure.
astounding, and that's a good thing in a way. It means that primates are being retired from the pet trade, biomedical research, and entertainment in much greater
Right.
numbers. Of course, that then is putting more of a strain on the sanctuaries, which are all nonprofits.
Sure.
So a lot of growth, and so I NAPSA itself is based in Oakland, California. I am the only employee of NAPSA, and so I actually work from home in Los
Okay.
Angeles. I joined the alliance in 2014. They were founded in 2010, so they were already around before I hopped on. But I was really excited to work with this group because I had previously written a book called Monkey
Yeah.
Business about the history of non-human primates in this country, and so it was truly an honor and really sort of I had to pinch myself a few times to get to work with these people who founded these sanctuaries and run these sanctuaries and just do such incredible work for
Right.
primates.
Right. Absolutely.
So yeah, and so NAPSA, is considered a voice for the primate sanctuary
Yeah.
community. Now, although not all primate sanctuaries are members of NAPSA,
Correct.
that may be due to like if they're not accredited or if it for whatever reason they're not a member, we still work with a number of non-member sanctuaries to place primates in need and support them and do what's best for captive primates in this country. And as you know, the needs for captive
Yes.
primates are huge and
Yeah.
ongoing. So
Definitely. Yeah. It's a huge pet
yeah.
trade out there, and people continue to purchase, monkeys and primates just to have them as pets and then use them for the entertainment purposes, which is unfortunate. And one of the reasons why we're here to speak out against all that. And I have noticed some changes, at least in some entertainment in Hollywood, and has now switched over to CGI and stuff like that. So it's not like how it was before necessarily, but I did notice that one of your posts that you guys were talking about monkey rodeos, and I figured this would be a really good topic to bring up because not a lot of people uh, have heard about this. Can you explain to people who've never heard about what monkey rodeos are?
Yeah. Monkey rodeos are a really strange subset
Mhm.
of the use of primates in entertainment. Normally, when we talk about primates in entertainment, you might think of like chimpanzees or monkeys being used in movies or in the
Right.
circus,
Right.
right? Or, those types of situations. But monkey rodeos are a dwindling
Hmm.
field of sort of a sideshow attraction. These are events that take place at either like minor league baseball
Mm.
games or fairs, and it's as crazy as it
Yeah.
sounds. It consists of monkeys strapped to small dogs who then race around a track, and it's such a weird um, uh, thing to exist. And when we talk about it, a lot of people don't know what monkey rodeos are, like you
Right.
mentioned.
Yeah.
And when you first say the name, they sort of chuckle because it
Sounds
sounds just
funny. Yeah.
outlandish.
Sounds
Exactly. And
clownish.
people think monkeys are
Yeah.
cute.
Right.
Exactly. But when you actually explain what it is and how and why this would be frightening and harmful and all those bad things to the monkey
Sure.
involved and even to the humans
Right.
involved, there's no doubt that this is something that no longer needs to exist. I mean, we have so many better forms of entertainment that are more compassionate and just more appropriate, that can be observed instead of monkey rodeos. So NAPSA for a while
Mm.
now has been dedicated to ending monkey rodeos, and
Good.
we're making good progress on that. But it's still a work in progress.
Still. So are there any laws against these practices currently here in the US right now?
Not federally, but there are some counties that have outlawed exotic animal shows. One that comes to mind is Alachua County in
Okay.
Florida. And a lot of that was due to a sanctuary that fought to get that in place.
Right.
And that was Jungle Friends Primate Sanctuary. And they really felt, strongly about this and spoke up about why this is a terrible
Yeah.
thing. And the county responded, and that's awesome. So we hope that those types of places set a precedent for more and more counties, municipalities to outlaw this. But in the meantime, NAPSA usually leaves. We're happy to support legal changes and changing, perceptions as much as possible. But sometimes there are larger groups that are more better handle have a more of a platform to get those laws in place, whereas NAPSA serves as the experts behind the scenes who can say, this is why this is harmful, this is why this shouldn't happen, and here's the side effects of it.
Right.
So so what NAPSA can do and what we do is use our collective voice to explain why these are so terrible and to reach out to the sponsoring organizations like the fairs or the baseball teams who host these events. Because when you explain it to them, it's not hard to understand why this is a silly, stupid, harmful thing that nobody would want to be affiliated with in most cases.
Right, because there's so much behind it, and it's not just so much the entertainment purposes, but then there's the whole animal trade behind it,
Yeah, and so here's the thing. So, there's 3 purveyors of monkey rodeos. I don't even know what to call these. There's 3 men who have the monkeys and who put on the shows, right? There's one called Whiplash the Cowboy Monkey.
I have heard of that, yes.
Yeah, right. Then there's another one called Team Ghost Riders, which is run by a guy named Tim Leopard. They have 3 capuchins that ride dogs. And then there's one called the Banana Derby, which is owned by a guy named Philip Dolce, who also goes by Philip Hendricks. Literally all 3 of those gentlemen have documented animal welfare violations through the USDA. This is not just my opinion. This is not, this is not a guess. These are things that are documented in the past. Those violations include things like failure to provide appropriate living spaces, failure to provide enrichment, which is a huge deal for the mental health of monkeys. Failure to provide appropriate food, lack of proper permits, permitting public contact with the monkeys. Public contact is a big deal. Reputable sanctuaries, don't permit this because diseases can be transferred, bites can occur, scratches, injuries, that kind of thing. And it's frightening for the monkeys.
That's true.
So there's just, I could talk for 5 more hours about just the harms.
No, that's great. And I've worked with animal sanctuaries like that, like primate sanctuary, work with jungle friends as well. And it's true. You have to be very careful. And if you're going to be with one species, you can't visit a different species in that same day. You kind of have to keep your staff separate because cross-contamination, I mean, they're very close to us humans that we can, pass on our germs. So you have to understand it's very, very, it's different than having a walking a dog and, kids petting it. Then it's a little completely, it's a lot more, it's a lot more dangerous. So, but please, yes, continue.
Well, for the even conservation aspects of it, when there's scientific studies that, and I know you know this, but that show that when humans see primates doing human things, like wearing clothes, being handled, being pet, it makes them think that these animals are appropriate as pets, and they're not. And sanctuaries are inundated with primates from entertainment and the pet trade who are not, they were not well considered for those industries, and people bought them or, and then said, oh, wait a minute, I can't care for this animal. and then turn them over to the sanctuary. So it's an ongoing problem, and their use in entertainment is so important in that way because it spreads completely misleading messages.
Absolutely. And then you have big corporations, same with like, the big amusement parks that are still have the animal shows and stuff like that, which people go and pay tickets and it's okay because it's families and they're taking their kids and they figure, this is okay. But in reality, they're not really teaching us any type of conservation. They're just exploiting these animals here, so
exactly. And I think some people might think it's not a big deal, oh, I'm just going this one time.
Right.
Well, they're not considering the lifetime of this animal that was bred for this purpose. A lot of times, for those handling opportunities, they can only use the young animal, like a young tiger, a young monkey, because they get too aggressive and dangerous. And then what happens to that individual once they're no longer useful by the institution? I mean, it's terrible. And, so sanctuaries can't be dumping grounds for those animals. Right. And it's a really disturbing part of our culture that luckily we've seen we've made some progress in. So I think, the monkey rodeos have been going on for a long time. I know NAPSA really put a concerted effort into ending them starting in 2016. There was that was the year that the National Animal Rights Conference took place in Los Angeles. Okay. And there was a meeting held with NAPSA, with PETA, with some other animal welfare and animal rights groups to talk about monkey rodeos and say, what can we do? So since then, NAPSA has partnered with some of those individuals and those groups to, work smarter, not just harder, but to really do what we could to reach the teams and the fairs hosting these monkey rodeos. Because and the successes and victories that we've had show that the outreach does work. Right. It's not over yet, but every year since then we've chipped away at this, and now like we just looked at 2021 at what's scheduled for monkey rodeos, and granted, sometimes we don't always hear of them before they take place. I think a lot of times they're not advertised because they know people can protest and makes sense. Raise a stink about it.
Makes sense.
So really, sometimes we don't hear about it.
Right. The last thing they want is people picketing outside the ball game right before it starts. So.
And it's happened. Yeah. It's happened. I mean, if you look up, like I know the Frederick Keys in Maryland, that was one that there were quite a few protests. And eventually that team, it took them a while. They weren't backing down. And then I think it was, let's see, I have to look at my list here. But after a few years, they said, 2019, they said they weren't going to host monkey rodeos anymore. So the outreach works.
That's good. And then you mentioned it before. There's only a few individuals, right? There's a lot more of us, a lot more of us voices. So if we combine our voices together and put it out there, these guys can just, they can disappear.
Their shows are archaic and they're out of date, and quite simply, I don't think there's a place in modern culture for these types of shows anymore.
So, no, go ahead. I'm sorry. So for the person who's listening to this, I'm like, well, I don't understand, Erika. The monkey's on top of the dog. What's the harm?
Okay, so the harm begins when they're born. Monkeys raised or born into the entertainment world are taken from their mothers years before they would naturally separate. Yes. That's in order to facilitate the handling of the baby and the further procreation of the mother. So, the breeders, this is what they do. This is how they make their money. The training and housing of these animals in entertainment is stressful, often harmful, often abusive. Monkeys, as they age, just like humans, can get rebellious, and they're inquisitive and smart, and their needs are not met in these types of living situations, which often, by the way, don't even give them social opportunities with other monkeys.
Right. And I can imagine the traveling being very, stressful.
Completely. Not to mention the shows that they're in.
Right.
These are in loud stadiums or fairs with lots of noise, stimulation, people. Oftentimes there's, petting and photos, and that's truly, the owners would say that the monkeys like it, they don't mind it, but they don't have a choice. They're forced into this, and I think over time they probably are numb to
Yeah,
it.
they have no
But
choice. I mean, and what a lot of people
yeah,
don't see when this first happens, when they first start training them, is they got to break them down in order for them to start doing
mhm,
all these tricks. So yeah, and it just same
exactly.
goes with like an elephant at a circus, or these elephants that all of a sudden are just not going to get up on two legs because they want to please you. You got to break them down, you know. So
Yeah, yeah, and over years and years, these monkeys, just like monkeys in the pet trade, they develop, reactions and effects to that lack of
right,
socialization, lack of expressing their natural behaviors, and they suffer. They can be depressed. They can self
yes, they
harm.
can.
Um, a lot of the animal violations that I've seen with these monkey rodeo purveyors involves, lack of appropriate living
Hmm.
space and food, really the basics of survival
Absolutely,
here. And, it's just sad to think of these monkeys living a whole entire
yeah,
lifetime in this
right.
way, um, for financial gain. That's the only
Yeah.
reason. Nobody's benefiting from this except the
Well,
owners.
yeah, obviously, like you said, it's all financial gain, and and like I've said in other podcasts before, it's the animal trade it's very lucrative with very minimal risks because the laws are so they're barely even there, and if they and if you do get fined, you'll get you get caught, you get fined a few $1,000s here and there, which makes it worth it because I still made this much money on the back end of this trade.
Exactly,
So
exactly.
it's kind of like
And
a
honestly,
it's just a regular expense. you know
exactly. It's a risk worth taking in their mind, right?
Absolutely.